Good evening.
Hello, for you.
Good. How are you?
Not bad. Just was trying to rush home and take the dog out and get back in time.
Understood.
Trying to make this big screen. Mm, There we go. We'll wait another minute or two, then we'll talk. There's only 5 or 6 people who have registered, so hello, hello. Oh, shucks. I'm just gonna wait for another minute or so, and we'll get started. Hmm. I'm going to go ahead and get started. What we can do is, real briefly, if anybody would like to introduce themselves, as you may know, probably know, I'm Tom Donohue, the ANC Commissioner for 8A01. And I called this meeting to talk about the um, National Guard and their continued involvement into our community. So I'll let anybody else, if they would like to unmute themselves and introduce themselves, you're certainly welcome to do so.
Yes, this is Ariel Miller. I'm a Ward 8 resident, and I'm just curious if you have any insight as to what their continued role is going to be post tomorrow, and specifically within our ward.
Great question. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? I'll answer your question in just a second. So I think it's best to explain it this way. We sort of have two things that are going on simultaneously. When the president declared an emergency 30 days ago, he also activated the National Guard. When he declared an emergency, that gave him 30 days of power, um, basically with MPD. That power ends this evening, so he can no longer ask the mayor to use the resources of DC government. Um, and so basically, what that means is um, the the emergency status ends today. So, for instance, one of the things he specifically asked for was assistance in um, using MPD to enforce immigration laws. That ends effectively tonight. So he can no longer ask to use our particular resources or to direct our resources um, to satisfy his um, requirements or his requests. Now, the one thing that will continue. Okay, so that's sort of the first thing that he did. That power ends effectively tonight. Now, the president at any time has the ability and the power to call up our National Guard. So that's the second thing that he has done. The two are not necessarily related, I guess, is for lack of better words. Um, what it's basically saying at this point is this is a different type of sort of power, for lack of better words, that he has. So he declared emergency. That emergency allowed him to tell Mayor Bowser, we want MPD to enforce immigration laws. And so that he had power to do for 30 days. Now, because Congress has ineffectively not extended that power to request our resources or to use our resources or to manage our resources is effectively over as of tonight. What it doesn't do is the president has the power to deploy our National Guard at any time for any length of period of time. Um, so what he has done is, and this is where I think some people are getting confused, is that the president has mobilized the DC National Guard, which basically means he has deployed DC residents who are uh, sort of on reserve with the DC National Guard. He's plucked them out from their full time jobs and has activated them. My understanding is until November now, and this is a separate power from the emergency power that he had as of the end of tonight. However, he does control the National Guard indefinitely. There is currently a lawsuit that was filed because he has also brought in National Guard from outside of DC, so outside of DC residents. And the lawsuit is trying to get that to stop and so he still has the control over the DC National Guard. Last week, no, this week, the ANC commissioners received an email which has been highly discussed from Director Hunt, Marcus Hunt, He is the director of the DC National Guard. He works directly for the mayor. Um, and he basically reached out to us asking about using the already deployed DC National Guard for local beautification efforts. Now, there are two facets of the National Guard. There's the DC National Guard and then National Guard from other states. For the most part, the officer, the National Guard units that you see with rifles are more than likely National Guard units from other states. And that is called Task Force Safe. So there's two different task force. One is Task Force Safe, and that's the National Guard who have rifles and who are making sure that our streets are safe. And then there's also Task Force Beautification. So what the DC National Guard is concentrated on in is this DC beautification. So most of the DC National the National Guard that you see cleaning up the parks and various things, the people that do not have rifles are mostly local DC residents who are also considered the DC National Guard. These are local residents, neighbors of ours who you might see at the grocery store or at the dog park. But these are also people that are under orders by the President of the United States to conduct a beautification project or projects in DC. So these are individuals that have no choice but to be here, working, plucked out from their job. They're our neighbors, are people that we pass by on a regular basis. However, they've been deployed and are being actively used to help quote beautify DC. Um, they are not here at the request of the mayor. These are federal orders by the President of the United States. And so the president can deploy them as he sees fit for as long as he wants. And he has done that. And my understanding is he has done that up until November. Although I understand that some of that might be more of an administrative thing. But for the most part, our federal partners and our National Guard are here to stay for now. Does that make sense to everyone at this point?
It does.
It's really important to understand.
I lost the connection. Okay, sorry.
Do you need me to briefly re?
No, I think I got most of it. You only glitched out for a few seconds, so I'm good.
Okay. And so the DC National Guard is going to be here no matter what. And so the director wrote to us asking if there were projects that would help continue to beautify. Well, actually, give me one second. I will actually read you uh, the email that we received. So we got it on Monday. And my contacts are all blurry, sorry. It says, Dear Commissioners, as a proud Ward 8 resident, three-generation Washingtonian, and lifelong resident of our city, I know firsthand the importance of caring for the neighborhoods we call home. In addition to serving as director, I am also a civil engineer in the DC National Guard. And it's both an honor and responsibility to ensure our Guard remains deeply connected to the community we serve. That's why I'm reaching out to request your help in identifying projects or initiatives where the DC National Guard can stand alongside ANC commissioners and residents on neighborhood beautification efforts. Our soldiers are not only members of the Guard, they are also our neighbors, living and raising families right here in the district. While our ability to support painting is limited, I'm not sure about that. Our teams are well positioned to contribute manpower for cleanup and improvement projects. Most importantly, we want to do this work together with the community, building relationships and strengthening the bond between the Guard and the community we proudly serve. I will also be reaching out to local groups such as churches and civic organizations and associations to expand participation and impact. I welcome your ideas and look forward to partnering on initiatives that highlight the pride, resilience, and strengths of our neighborhoods. So that was the email that started kind of a stir among all of the among a lot of the ANC commissioners. I mean, there's a lot of resolutions being written. There's a lot of people, and it goes sort of the support, goes on both ends. The one thing, I come from a long line of history of military. My father served for 42 years. So I have the highest respect. And the number one thing I would ask all of our neighbors to do is to not forget that these are our neighbors. They don't have a choice but to be doing what they're doing. And neither the mayor, myself, or any other elected official have any say in what they're doing. They are here on the direct orders of the President of the United States. And so when you see them, please understand that they are away from their full-time jobs. They're often away from, even though they live here in DC, they're away from, seeing their kids go off to school for the very first day because they're on patrol. These are our neighbors and our residents. So please keep that in mind. And if you so feel that you can thank them for their service. They often will not speak to the politics of sides, only the fact that they have received orders from the President of the United States directing them to be doing what they're doing. With that said, I had a meeting this afternoon with the director, and there was a lot of back and forth amongst a lot of the commissioners about what they could be doing, whether they want them to be doing it, and it's very mixed. So that's why I did put out a poll, because I certainly have my way of feeling about it. I think that since they are required to be here, they're going to be here whether we like it or not. I'd rather them be doing something rather than just sitting or standing up against a Humvee or whatever. So the concern that I have with that is normalizing that. We don't necessarily want to normalize that this is activity that our National Guard should typically be doing. Our National Guard is generally utilized for emergencies, hurricanes. Sometimes we'll see them for the inauguration. Things that are, you don't just call them up for anything. Because remember, we're taking them away from their full-time jobs. So I don't necessarily support the fact that they're here on orders by the President of the United States. However, they are here. And since they are here, do we utilize them and take advantage of their presence? And that's where I'm conflicted. And so because I'm conflicted and because I want to hear from the constituents and my neighbors and you guys, I decided to sort of host this meeting and get some feedback from you. Before I do that, let me talk about a couple of key points from our meeting today. I'm going to read some notes, and I apologize. My allergies and contacts are driving me insane. So here's my takeaways. The DC National Guard's current mission is focused on task force beautification, keeping in mind that earlier I said there's sort of two task force. One is beautification, and the other is task force safe. Task force beautification involves community cleanups and improvement projects. This is separate from the federal task force SAFE mission, which involves out of state troops and is often associated with security. Okay. The Guard is home. So, some people have been like, oh, go home, again, keeping in mind that these people are ordered to be here by the President of the United States. They're not necessarily here at the order of the mayor. It is no secret that the mayor and I agree. Most people agree that they shouldn't be mobilized to be here and being taken away from their families. That we do have plenty of resources here in the district to do cleanups and beautification projects. Um, so Director Hunt emphasized that the DC National Guard members are not an external force, but are DC residents and neighbors with families and full time jobs. He found the go home message hurtful because they are already home. So when you're telling people to go home, not you, but when people are telling our National Guard to go home, they are home. They are our neighbors. They're only acting on the orders that they receive from the President of the United States. Federal orders, not local choice. Both parties agreed. The commissioner, the director, and I agreed that the Guard's presence is due to federal orders, not requested from the DC mayor. This creates a difficult situation for the commissioner, for me, as most of these constituents are, from what I can tell, oppose their involvement in our local beautification. As from what I can tell, on the poll. And I have two more points. Community input is key. So I continue to stress that decision on whether to accept the Guard's help will be based on feedback from the neighbors. So I will be moving forward based upon the feedback that I received from you. If if most of you decide, that we don't want that, then that's the messaging that I will move forward. Lastly, Director Hunt encouraged me to submit a list of potential projects, regardless of how big or small they are. He stated that the Guard would review all the ideas and see what was feasible. Now, I started the meeting off. My intent was to broadcast the meeting between him and I. And as soon as he got on, I had informed him that I was airing it on Facebook, and he requested that I not do that. And so I respected that and just took some pretty decent notes. So that's where we are at this point. Again, the main takeaways from this is the fact that these are our neighbors. These are people that we will see out and about. And I ask that they be given as much respect as possible, as they are only conducting the orders that they've been ordered to do by the president. So if you have concerns about their presence here, it's not with the mayor, it's not with the DC government, it is directly with the president of the United States. They are here on his orders. And so with that said, it does pose an interesting question as to, do we as a community, as a neighbors, welcome their presence to identify beautification projects that we'd like them to do. Something that I had mentioned, and this is just an example, but there's been a lot of talk about us getting. There's a lot of talk about us getting some people wanting a dog park. Oh, hello, SJ. This might be something that we could request. Whether that'll happen or not, who knows? But they're open for suggestions and ideas. There are several ANCs that are declining their assistance. And what I thought I would do is provide you my perspective, um, as much education and educational material on it, from my firsthand conversation that I had with the director, and ultimately leave it up to you folks as to how you would like me to represent you in, whether or not the National Guard does some work in our single member district or in our area. So with that said, I'd like to open the floor. You can unmute yourselves. And oh, I'm opening this up for discussion. I'm just going to sit back and listen and like to hear what you folks have to say, about your thoughts on everything or ask questions or anything in regards to this matter. So with that said, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away yours or.
Okay, this is Miss Taylor. You mentioned two types of or two roles that the National Guard would play, and one was beautification of community and safety. Am I correct?
The second is task force safe.
Task force safe and beautification.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody knows no way that you're going to be able to beautify and clean up this whole Ward 7 and 8. That's just impossible. You can have as many cleanups as you like every month. And the next 2 days after that, trash is back down again. So with the manpower that they will provide, I don't have a problem with them being here doing that. And if they want to keep us safe, I don't have a problem with that either. Because I have not seen them in 7 and 8. I've seen them on TV down at the Union Station and places like that. But me personally, I do not have a problem with them doing both. That's just my aspect of it.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And for people to constantly, ANC or whoever, constantly say, I don't want them here. We understand the whole shebang of how they got here, what they're here for, and things like that. But as you know, you cannot, and I repeat this, clean up every cranny and crook over here in Ward 7 and 8. Because as soon as you clean up, they're throwing trash right back down again. But with the manpower that the National Guards will provide, I don't see a thing wrong with it. But go ahead, Miss Miller, because I'll just keep saying the same thing. So go ahead.
No worries, ma'am. No worries. I was going to echo that. I haven't seen them except in tourist spots. But if they want to be here to clean, I got several lists that they can work on. So starting with, we need volunteers for DCNatives.org, which is a nonprofit started in Ward 8 that helps provide free native plant gardens to residents and homeowners within Wards 7 and 8 in particular, but all over DC. And typically the residents here need help not only with the planting, but in the prepping of their gardens. So that's ripping up some of the topsoil, et cetera. So that would be super helpful, especially to our more elderly residents, because they're always looking for volunteers. Number two, they can volunteer and support our community gardens. I know that they need support as well as the ones that the work that UDC is doing. They can help River Smart deliver and install rain barrels and rain gardens, in particular rain barrels, because we have a backlog on the contractors being able to install the rain barrels, and that includes prepping the ground and making sure that the rain barrels don't tip over. They can plant native plants in and around Ward 8. And they can also support, since the director is a civil engineer, the South Capitol Street Bike Trail, which is now delayed from a spring 2026 start to what I have just found out is a summer 2026 start. And since they decided to cut the express bus from the Anacostia Station to JBAB and NRL, we need to get that up and running. And that's just the start of my list. I'm pretty sure if I thought about it a little bit more, I'd come up with more things.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's why I said I don't see why people would even turn their nose down for help, because we all need it.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing that I would be concerned about is if these National Guard troops are going to also be allowed to do arrests and renditions of our immigrant population or people that they think look like an immigrant. That would be my only concern.
And I don't think they're equipped and got the knowledge and training for that. I really don't think so. From what I've been hearing,
I don't think so either, based on what Commissioner Donohue said. That doesn't sound like it, but I also know that there's going to be a lot of people in our immigrant populations that would still be wary of them being there. But those are my concerns.
I have a question. I don't have a problem with beautification. Like, we definitely have a huge trash issue in the area, but it's not the type of thing where once they're here, we can control them. And I have seen them mass arresting immigrants and other folks. And my thing is, like, once they get here, and it's like, okay, yes, they're here to beautify. We, and even you, Mr. Donnie, you cannot control them. So, I mean, who's to say that they're not going to say, yeah, we're going to be here planting flowers and doing native gardens, and then they're mass arresting people, including
those are
kids.
Great questions. Sorry, those are great questions, and I think those are valid concerns. So let me see if I can address some of them. The direction. So once the emergency ends, which is tonight, I guess officially at midnight, the directive from MPD, as the way I understand it, to assist with MPD in immigration tasks effectively ends. Now, doesn't mean that our federal partners can't execute the laws. However, MPD will go back to the policy sort of as it was prior to the emergency. As far as the beautification, so these are two tasks, very specific tasks, and the beautification. If you notice, those who are doing the beautification are not armed. They don't have any weapons, and that is their orders, is to specifically deal only with beautification. It's from my understanding, it's specific in their orders. Those who have weapons, who have rifles, are ordered specifically as part of the task force SAFE mission, and they are specifically ordered to assist MPD with keeping the streets safe. So
if I could interrupt, is there any way that what I'm concerned about is, so task force beautification, and I too am a veteran. Task force beautification comes in, they start planting the native plants, and they see someone they suspect of being an illegal immigrant. What stops them from calling in strike force safe?
So my understanding is that's not their role. In that now, what they do on their own, my understanding is that is not their role. Their role
What
is
is the other people's role?
Say that again.
Is that the other safe what's called role?
That's a good question. My understanding is that they I need to I'll get clarification on that, actually. I don't want to answer to that because my understanding is that they're only to play a role in making a presence, basically, at, like somebody had said, at Potomac Metro Station, where they're standing by preventing crimes from happening. I'm not aware that that they will be sort of, it's more of a presence than anything, but I will commit to getting an answer to that and posting it on my Facebook page tomorrow and sending out an email. But
Okay.
my understanding is that they are two completely very specific missions, and that the mission is either to beautify or the other mission is to keep safe. I don't think
Hey,
that
beautiful.
that's the. I'm
So,
sorry.
Commissioner, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
So, this is a lesson for the books, because if the National Guard was that invested in beautifying communities across the District of Columbia, I just think we would have seen that consistently playing out as a part of the narrative before this current narrative. And I
Keep in
think
mind
the
that they've only
duality
been,
and
but
I
keep
think
in
the
mind that they've only
duality
been.
I think the duality and the duplicity that exists in this situation, even from looking at the comments, is that intention versus actuality are two different things. And so that's not a normal thing that we see in wards. I grew up in every ward, in every quart of the city but Southwest, but I had family there. That's not the norm to see the National Guard in communities doing beautification. It's not the norm to see the National Guard in communities unless something has plagued that community and required the attention of that type of authority. And so my whole thing is, children can't even get to school safely and get home safely. And I'm not trying to be facetious or anything, but I'm really not interested in planting gardens and plants or any of that if we have a problem with safety issues. And I don't think that the National Guard should be the catalyst to invoke safety in a community where we have a police presence, we have a mayor, and we have leadership that's already identified as doing that. And so, like you said, at a certain hour, those who claim they came here to impose safety, that's going to be uplifted and they're going to be gone. And we're going to go
Keep in
back
mind.
to the same, and we're going
So
to have the same police officers supposedly reassume the roles that they never left, the posts that they really never left. And so my question becomes, not what can the beautification department do, because if safety is still an issue, then where does that conversation pick back up? And what happens after that?
Ms. Jones, let me clarify just a couple of quick things. First, the 30-day emergency ends this evening, and what that entails
Yes,
is that basically says that the president or his designee can no longer request specific actions from the resources of the DC government.
exactly.
So that
I knew
means
you.
that they can no longer ask
You said some
MPD
man was
to.
outside, so I called you right back and you didn't answer. I said, well, I guess the man got her.
That means that the means that the president can no longer ask MPD to enforce certain um, uh, immigration laws that we weren't necessarily enforcing prior to the 30 days. You have to understand it's two different entities. It's two different actions, basically. One is the emergency powers, which doesn't have anything to do with the National Guard, okay? Because the National Guard mobilization in itself is separate from the emergency powers that the president had, okay? It's
But what
also
was the
very
purpose of
unique.
them being here? But what was the purpose of them being here?
Who? The purpose of National Guard being here?
The deployed National Guard, not the National Guard that resides here, the National Guard that was deployed here from different states and who was
So,
unarmed initially and then armed.
so that is considered this uh, task force safe mission. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Within the National Guard, there are two missions, and each of
I understand. I'm not I'm I understand that. I understand exactly what the two missions are, the two differences of interest that is reported. I understand that. I understand shielding and guarding the National Guard that lives here and not treating them as if they were deployed here and told and given weapons and told to enact and enforce certain rules or what have you. I understand all of that. I'm telling you, if we're having to have this conversation about their presence and the difference of when we sit on this call and we talk about beautification, people are not going to ask that question when they see them. When they see them, like Ms. Scott says, there are too many unknowns. And people are not going to have that. They're not going to take the time to ask them, which task force are you with? Are you a National Guard that's from DC, or are you deployed from, one of the red states? They're not going to have that conversation with them in terms of how they treat them. And so, if we're the fact that we're deliberately and intentionally, that you and the people that you've already spoken with felt like they deliberately and intentionally had to differentiate between DC's National Guard and deployed National Guard members, is the first red flag for me, because that was never a part even of the initial conversation. Those of us who have military understanding or background, we know that there's a difference, but does the general population know that? Do they even care? Do they even care? And so I'm just very, and like I said, these weren't conversations that we were had before this happened. These are conversations that are now taking place about how to connect with the National Guard after all of these things happen. And so if this was a normal precedence within the city for us to look at the National Guard in this way, in a positive way, in a non-threatening way, in a safe way, then we wouldn't have to differentiate between which task force is safe and which one isn't. And we wouldn't have to differentiate between what are they going to do and what are their intentions. And so I just, like I said, I feel like for me, safety is still an issue. If it was an issue before the other guards were brought here, is nothing that has drastically changed that said it's no longer an issue. And so the bigger conversation for me would be not what can the National Guard do to beautify a neighborhood. The bigger conversation for me still remains, what is happening where the neighborhoods still aren't safe? Because I get the fair lawn alerts, I get the Anacostia notifications. So while they are, I don't know what statistics they're looking at, which ones they're reading, what are they talking about, but I see the burglaries, I see the robberies. It's still happening, with or without the National Guard being here. So that's the conversation I'm interested in. Once this is lifted, what do we do to still fight to keep our communities and our kids and our families and our elderly and our you know physically challenged, mentally challenged folks? What do we do to keep us safe? Working class people, like, what do we do to ensure our safety? That's where I linger. And thanks for letting me get all of that out.
No, I appreciate that. I genuinely do. Um, Look, the only information that I can share with you is what's been shared with me, and I do share a lot of the same concerns. And I think that to address specifically, the larger safety concern, what I'd like to do, or what I'm going to do, is I did it last month, but um, my next ANC meeting, our single member district meeting, is the fourth Tuesday of every month. We do in person over at Galilee Baptist Church on Minnesota Avenue. I will have a member of MPD there as well this month. And the reason I want to have that there, like I did last month, is because we had good engagement. We had a lot of questions from the community directly to MPD, and now that the so-called surge is over, now the last now the surge is over. It is important to see. We'll have been 2.5 weeks or so after the surge is over. So the next meeting will be the fourth Tuesday. Let me just look at it real quick. The 23rd of September. And so I think that, being in 2 weeks or so after the surge ends would be a good time to, sort of ask MPD. The other thing is, I'll also mention that Friday, at 2 p.m., we're going to be doing a community walkthrough with Chief Smith on the 2200 block of Minnesota Avenue. There'll be a large contingent of people, so you won't be able to miss it. But it's scheduled to be Friday at 2 p.m. For community walkthrough. And you're certainly welcome to join us. I think that these are good questions to ask Chief Smith, but we'll also have somebody at our meeting to ask these questions. I'm haven't gotten guidance from the mayor's office, or specifically to what happens after tonight. My understanding is that each mission sort of continues. Beautification mission continues to beautify. The safe mission continues, where we'll see National Guard members at the metro stops, and that we'll still have a presence of federal law enforcement. How that's all going to work, if we're going to be seeing as much of it as we were during or after the surge, I think that's to be seen. However, I think it's also evolving, to be honest with you. So I don't know that I answered your question. However, I do think that your points are valid, and I think that that's something that we need to bring up at my ANC meeting, or my single member district meeting to MPD later in the month. Let me look through some of your chats real quick. Ms. Jones, in regards to the schools, I have put a lot of pressure on MPD to address and make sure that we have safe passage to schools. We're in the process in October of doing a survey with Boone Elementary. We just had one done with Kramer last year. Now they're actually implementing the changes, which included a bunch of speed bumps and new signage, and things like that. So we'll also be looking at the traffic patterns for Boone, and safe passage in general, because Boone does not have safe passage. Most elementary schools apparently do not. But that's definitely one of the things that I want to figure out why.
That's a good question. Thank you so much, because I work at Henley Elementary School over at 6 and Chesapeake, and they don't have safe passage, and they are pretty much kind of deploying behavior techs to support safe passage for kiddos. And I don't know, like I as a DC resident, safe passage was bred out of like almost peer-to-peer situations and activities. But if there are high crime communities, within the past 5 years, I can say I've had maybe 7 lockdowns at Henley Elementary School.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And so it sits on the corner where there's a lot of substance use, abuse, selling activity, is a major bus route there. And I don't know how they qualify schools, especially at an elementary level, how they qualify schools for safe passage. But I just think that if they're in high crime and high risk communities, then the resources should be driven in that way to support the need. And it shouldn't matter whether it's a high school or a middle school, but if the activity dictates that there is something unsafe about what's going on in that community on a regular, then maybe they may need to look at redefining what safe passage, is built off of and who it should be implemented for.
I agree with you 100% actually. We do have state passage for Kramer Element or Kramer Middle School and Anacostia. However, we do not have state passage. State passage meaning the individuals that have to bring vests on and make sure that students sort of have a safe passage to and from school. I don't know if you've noticed but we have, I've worked very, very hard in the last couple of weeks, trying to bring a lot of attention to the 2200 block of Minnesota Avenue. And we've had some successes, and we're still working on it. One of the things we're going to start to implement is the parking restrictions along Minnesota Avenue, which will help hopefully keep some of the traffic moving and less people parked along the road. Um, we had um, the crime suppression unit had a busted 2 people for distribution right there in front of that gray building on Minnesota. And then yesterday, the day before, I think it was the day before, we had the crime suppression group also arrested, had a fairly large arrest for weed um, uh, on 22nd Street. So they are definitely making more of a presence. We also had the environmental crimes team out and about in the area. Um, they have been cleaning up the Triangle Parks um, at Naylor and 22nd in Minnesota, more on a regular basis. And the inspectors have been coming through almost on a daily basis, also trying to get the streets cleaned up as well. So you'll see them come through with a garbage truck and rakes and actually go through and sift um, and clean that up. To your point, Miss Jones, your inquiry about the time. Unfortunately, I have no say whatsoever when these walks are made. I'm lucky if I'm informed of them. Um, it's a little been a little bit of a challenge getting the information. And so uh, we did a community walk at noon, couple like last week. Um, and then I recently found out they were supposed to do this walk with the chief on Friday, but it got delayed to this coming Friday. And I was told yesterday, after I inquired about it, what time it was going to be, and they informed me that it was 2 o'clock. So I hope to record some of it or do a live video on my Facebook page as much as I can. It's tough because I'm also trying to engage with the chief of police on what's going on in the community as well. So I'll try my best to get that recorded and you can walk around or walk with us if you're able to follow us online or maybe I'll just ask somebody to do it for me. But either way, I'll do my best to try to get you folks involved as much as possible uh, um, via online. Let me see here. Well, you know, some know that in the neighborhood know that I've been faced with um, individuals who are trying their best to destroy my reputation. Um, and I don't even know how to discuss it because it's not something I really want to discuss, but I think it's important. One of our neighbors recently made me aware that there's a flyer going around with two pictures of me on it. We know who's doing it, where it literally says on the photo, it says it has a picture of me, and it's like I'm waving at them because uh, uh, and so they took a snapshot of my hand in the air, and it says at the very top of this photo, it says, "This is your ANC commissioner standing on our street, flashing white power salute." This is not the first flyer of this sort of magnitude. Of the other one was somebody, the same person took a picture of me walking my dog and put it up in the building on 19th Street, where he presumed I had kicked people out, which I don't have the power to kick people out. We are working very closely with two residents that remain in the building to relocate them. But he put this flyer up with a picture of me on it saying that I was the one responsible for kicking everyone out of the building and to take pictures of it and share it. So, um, you know, anybody that knows me for the last 8 months, 9 months now, I've really tried to do my best. But I also have to watch out for myself and my safety as well. And it is something that I am concerned about. I mean, this is a volunteer position in which I spend a lot of time in our community while I have it. And I live here too. And these are the things that I do because I want to see cleaner streets as well, just like everybody else. And so um, it is disheartening um, when people with their own, I don't know what it is, to be honest with you, um, want to, destroy, individuals' characters. But I guess that's sort of what I signed up for when I ran for office. And so um, I don't know to where where else it goes. I don't receive any support from much of our other agency commissioners in our commission. In fact, we often are. I ask questions about things that we should know, like budgetary numbers, and I get um, you know criticized for doing things like that. And when I ran on transparency and accountability, and holding people to those sometimes um, can be difficult, especially when they're not used to it or they don't want to be transparent or accountable. So um, just know that I'll continue to push forward, and when I host meetings like this, on this fly like this, I do because I want to get your opinion. I want your involvement. This is not, I've been elected to represent you. It's not, I don't make the decisions for you guys. And that's why I wanted to get your input on this important topic. Do we want National Guard in our community? I do believe from our conversation that with the director. He does work for the mayor. That his intentions are good when they call for beautification. Um, Again, these are local neighbors of ours that live in our own communities. Um, and so, uh, my point is, a part of me wants to say they're assigned to do beautification and they're here anyway at the orders of the President of the United States. They're not going to be going anywhere. And I'd rather them be doing something than nothing and take advantage of trying to use them for whatever to make our community a better place. And although I absolutely disagree with them even being here, I still support them as individuals. I still support them as our neighbors. However, it's not our choice that they're here. It's not their choice that they're here. It's not the mayor's choice that they're here. It is the gripe that you should have is with our president, who has ordered them to be here. And so I do believe that there is good intent by our neighbors to do well for our neighbors in our neighborhoods. And that remember that they are not here by choice, that they are here by the order of our President of the United States. So in the conversation that I had with the director today was very genuine. He's a Ward 8 resident. And I don't, and as much as they can't, he's not going to tell me that, you know, he's not going to go against his orders or talk negatively about the orders that he's received. I suspect that he probably feels very similar to the way that we feel as well. Thanks, Ms. Williams. I appreciate that. And Ms. Tyler, look, I'm not. I work for you guys. I'm a volunteer, but I still work for you guys. And even though I personally feel like we should take advantage if they're going to be ordered to do beautification projects, overwhelmingly, well, at least the last time I looked, it was 70-30 against having the National Guard here. So, I want to do what you guys want. You asked me to represent you, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not here to represent my opinion, but maybe offer my opinion, and then go off of what you folks want. So that's why I wanted to have the conversation. It's a great community conversation to have, and so yeah. With all of that said, I'm sorry I too can be long-winded at times. Let me open it up for additional conversation. And pardon my contacts and allergies.
I just want to say, Tom, this is Crystal. Thank you so much for all that you do. I'm always seeing you out in the neighborhood while I'm walking my dog. So, thank you for what you do. My dad, my uncles, my grandfather served in the military. In a perfect world where we could believe what's being said about this being a beautification deployment, I have my reservations about it. I strongly do, of making the military the new norm in our neighborhoods. And if they were deployed here, for until tonight for one reason, and then they're out for beautification, who's to say once they're out in Ward 7 and 8 that their orders change to something else? That's my fear of it. That's where I have reservations about it. And even with people speaking tonight on the call, there's people saying, well, I don't think they would. I don't like not knowing like that. I don't think they would do that. That was said numerous times on this call. And everything that we didn't think would happen during this administration has happened. So that is my big concern with it. Like I said, in a perfect world, it would be nice, but we don't live in a perfect world. And that's my biggest concern with it.
Thanks, Crystal. Appreciate that. Ms. Miller?
Yes, I agree with what Kansas said, what Miss Jones said. Um, really, everybody who's spoken, their concerns are valid. Not that they need me to validate them, but I echo them. I agree with them. I think it's a failure of imagination to not consider a lot of worst case scenarios, irrespective of, and to some degree, in direct contradiction to what we're being assured of. In fact, if they're assuring us of it, I want to assume the exact opposite. Because I don't think in this timeline, I would think in this timeline it's a dereliction of duty not to. Um, and as much as I could put somebody to work and think of like 80 million things that they could do, I also at the same time was concerned about a lot of the same things, some other things that other people brought up that I didn't think of, and that's why we're having the conversation. No one of us has the complete picture of the perspective, but even with all those ideas I shared at the beginning, I'm still really hesitant to have them here. I understand their residents. I understand that, for some of them, this may be their home, but, as all of us who have served in the military know, you don't really get to challenge orders. And a lot of those guys are enlisted. And so they really can't challenge the orders. It's the officers that end up having to be that shield and interpret the Constitution. And it's just, I'm tired of every time I go out at night being afraid that I'm going to run into one of these guys and they're going to challenge my citizenship. I'm Black, but I look Hispanic. I get confused for being Hispanic all the time. I carry around my passport card in my wallet, and I'm still not really confident because what if they don't even let me grab it? What if they look at it and go, yeah, I don't care?
But that's ICE,
So
though. It's not the National Guard.
that I really don't show a distinction at this point.
No,
And to the point that I think somebody else made, I don't think that's a distinction a lot of people are going to spend their time, having an academic conversation about.
That's such a good point because it is hard to tell the distinction because you just have, and I'm just going to use the blanket term, guards out who have masks on, and you don't know if they're ICE or they're the National Guard. You don't know if they're armed or not armed. I mean, it's just like you never know. And I see them at the metros. I did used to see them in Ward 8. Now I do.
Ward 8 or 7. Well, I'm gonna say 8. I can't speak for 7.
Yeah, I didn't see them in Ward 8 initially, and I was like, oh, okay, they're just in Georgetown, and well, I guess Navy Yard is Ward 8. Navy Yard,
okay, yeah, it is Ward 8, Navy Yard.
Yeah, and now I see them at Potomac Avenue Station. And then I don't know if they're
Ward 8 on Southern Avenue. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but I think they're slowly. I mean, I think it's like because I don't know. I think they're slowly inching their way in. It's like
because people have been on the news asking for them. For one thing, I've seen that. Ward 7 and 8. They said, "How come you haven't been in my neighborhood?"
I've been one of them.
Exactly. That's what I said. They've been asking for them because they're everywhere else but here.
Right.
It's interesting. I get that. I don't know. I understand that people think that they're preventing crimes and arresting people, but the majority of the arrests they've made have either been around immigration or petty crimes. So I mean,
alerts just like Miss Kern does. I get all the alerts for wards 6, 7, and 8, and my phone has not been pinging off for the last month and a half. We talk about carjackings to burglaries to shooting. It has not. Not to say, I guess because of their being out there, but I have not. Even on this side, even though they haven't been on this side of at Ward 8, I have not gotten anything from Ward 8, Ward 7, or 6 as far as crime goes. And it's my DC alert. That's what I get.
I don't think there's any question. I mean, I don't think there's question that crime was down prior to the surge. I don't think that there's any question that crime is down even further as a result of the
Right.
surge.
True.
I mean, when you give people guns and you make it well known that they're going to be out and about,
Mhm.
you're going to find a decrease in whatever it is. Because people, I mean, hell, people aren't even going out to to dinner, because of the
Businesses are
surge.
suffering terribly since this has happened.
Hmm?
Businesses are suffering
Oh
terribly.
yeah,
From
they
Guard.
they they are. They are.
So, to sort of keep it to about an hour or so, am I collectively hearing that you would prefer me to um, take the position of not having the National Guard in our community as part of the beautification mission? If so, put yes, you do want, or no, you do not in the chat, and I will take that as advisement and move forward with that decision, and we'll put it out on notice to the community that that's the position that I will be taking. And I'm seeing an overwhelming. Okay, sure. Okay, no. My computer, I swear. Yes, I see one.
Hey Tom, this is Trevor. Fairlawn
Trevor.
resident. Yep. Hey, I do have a lot of questions,
Okay.
actually. But I think since we've been over an hour now, I'll just say I did put yes, but I feel like for under the it's all I mean all this is a bit false pretense, I think, but it's a matter of a show, so I hate to support this production.
I'm sorry.
But I
You
would
sound muffled.
say
You sound very
with
muffled. We can't.
okay, hold on. Thank you. Is this any better? Can you
Yes.
hear me better? Okay. So I'm saying like I have a lot of questions. Um, Part of it is beautification actually a traditional part of National Guard? So I know that there are some community building efforts that they often do when they're besides disaster relief, like when governors, of course, we don't have a governor. That's why we funded the president. But the National Guard is a state asset. So it's typically governors asking to do things. So I was just wondering if there is sort of that kind of beautification mission that's typical, and we just haven't had it happen around here. Um, that's one thing. No, and if so, then I'm cool with it. I don't necessarily want to invite into the community the safety um, mission, although I know that we have a safety problem. I just feel that in terms of the personnel that they would be utilizing, it probably has not been much of an education and a level setting between MPD and the at least the deployed National Guard to kind of get on a level of how to interact with the community in a way that's conducive. So why I say for the beautification part, I know it was just mentioned about that it's, not necessarily the best, you're not thinking about it well to say yes, invite them in. I feel like, well, are we gonna bar them from the neighborhood? Because, in this part, we're not saying
Mm-hmm.
that either we invite them in or we say
Right.
nothing, right? They could
Right.
still come here. We're not barring them.
Right.
And I half wonder if it is actually the opposite. Maybe it's foolish to not take advantage of the
Right.
extra human power, right?
That's what I said.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and perhaps could we put conditions on our, you know, invitation, if you will, to say that one, make it clear that this is yeah, and I agree that people will think what they will when you see someone at a distance. But I feel also that, perhaps there's ways to advertise that it's, again, the
Mm-hmm.
beautification
Mm-hmm.
mission, personnel that enter the community go right to the activity that is helping to make our neighborhoods more homey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm definitely one to feel that your environment influences your attitude. And so I
Mm-hmm.
feel like in the long run, it also adds to that feeling of safety here,
Yes.
simply because not so much litter or like that feeling
Mhm.
that no one cares. And so
Right.
people stop caring. Um, Another aspect of it, of a condition, perhaps it could be that it's also each activity would be kind of a collaboration, or that the community is invited to participate with the National Guard personnel, so that it's
Mm-hmm.
it is collaborative,
Right.
and potentially will spark something to continue
Mm-hmm.
on. Um, that's where I'm sitting, and why I would say yes, under those conditions. And since it's going through the mayor's office and that's their specific ask, do we have projects? Now, would we be remiss to say no, we do not, when we know we do, and we just don't have the
Trevor,
people dedicated to
I have a few
over.
questions.
and
I'm
Trevor, I
sorry,
would just
Trevor.
say that they also stress, the director also stresses it is in like they want to work side by side with us. They want the community to be involved. It's not like we're just inviting them. They want to know what projects they can contribute to help us advance whatever projects we want to offer them to be involved in. So it's not like they're just coming in and taking over projects or just doing projects. They it's a collaborative effort between the community and the National Guard.
I have two, and they may be silly questions and a comment. So one, the National Guard, if they come in and beautify, I'm going to assume they're going to be suited and booted in full military gear. And the reason I'm asking that is because just that sight is a bit jarring, to be completely honest. Just like when I'm commuting, just seeing guards standing around the metro is kind of a jarring feeling. It feels like we're under like in a police state, military state, what have you, even though I know that's not technically what we're under. And then also, what is the agency that is normally in control or manages beautification projects, and why aren't they doing it?
Yeah.
And actually, on that last point, Tom, the person that you're saying as a manager, like, is that from, you said that he's from the mayor's office. Is
National,
that what his position is sort of community
national.
enrichment, community
Director
beautification?
of the National Guard that basically works in the mayor for the mayor. In fact, he
Yeah, I
was
didn't
very
think the
one of the
mayor had one. That's why I was confused then, because I thought for DC it's directly to the Secretary of Defense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, under the Army. So it goes to the Secretary of the Army, to the Secretary of Defense, to the President. But I guess I'm wrong then.
I don't think you're wrong. I think that this this gentleman is the actually. Let me tell you what his actual is. Um, his uh,
And while you're looking for that, I'll also mention, yeah, in one of the recent, not the most recent, but I guess last month, yeah, single member ANC call, you did have um, I think it was the CEO of Navy Yard, who also offered up, like, community involvement and help and interaction, and wanted to know more about, be an active part of our community as well. So I would also say there's something else that we could leverage moving forward too. That, again, yeah, so I would agree that, yeah, seeing people suited and booted are, can be jarring, but that's why I'm wondering if there's ways to also have community members work side by side, like volunteering to get out there and clean as well. Or, I like the proposed ideas that were brought up earlier. Um, I have a question about, can it be on private property? Must it be on public property? Those type of things. But, again, having folks go in that know how to shore up rain barrels for installation. Yeah, great idea. It helps. But it also, you already see them on the news raking leaves, in other neighborhoods. So
Absolutely.
yeah, why not ours?
Yeah, and I had that same question, and he
Great.
didn't clarify it. Was like, back in the alley in Q Street, we've got a ton of trash in one of the properties. So,
Mm-hmm.
I the legalities of going on private property, the reason it's still got trash on it is because it is private property, and I can't get the DPW out there out on the private property to get it cleaned.
Exactly.
So, you know, but he did make reference to cleaning out alleys and what sounds to be more like public property. But let me just read to you real quick. Marcus Hunt was named director of DC Government Operations, District of Columbia National Guard in
Mm-hmm.
April 2022. His role, Marcus is responsible for advising the DC National Guard commanding general as to the best practices in DC government operations that can be applied to agency programs and procedures, providing directions in the preparation and maintenance of contingency plans that require the use of National Guard for district emergencies, and coordinating with the Deputy Mayor of Public Safety and Justice DC government operation is responsible for a $17 million budget and 150 employees.
But I thought that beautification came from the president because he was talking about how dirty and filthy DC was, and he was going to clean it up. That's what I believe. That's where that beautification came from, as far as the National Guards go.
It is, and so this has been ordered by the President of the United States.
Exactly. So
It's
it doesn't matter whether it's private property or whatever. That's what my thought is. It doesn't matter whether it's private property or not. He want it cleaned up. Hmm.
Yeah, that may be, and that's yeah. I just say it's a question to throw back and say what are the conditions here, as part of a
This is what I'm going to do.
negotiation.
I'm going to ask
That
that I'm going to ask, and I don't know that he'll accept, but I'm going to ask that he attend my next single member district meeting, which again, to plug it myself, is what did I say it
Mm-hmm.
was? The 25th. It's the 23rd. No, yeah. Um, the 23rd, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the one, 2, 3, 4, 23rd of September.
Okay.
And then I'll also ask, so I'll ask Director Hunt to be there, and I'll also ask MPD to be there so that we can ask these additional questions. Um, and maybe I'll hold off on putting out any sort of support or non-support until after that meeting. Let's give 2 weeks to see how everything sort of settles down, and we have any additional questions, and then the last week in September, we can make a decision as to how to move forward. How does that sound for everyone?
Okay. And by the way, Trevor, you were asking about the guy from the Navy. That was Thomas Haskins, and he had left his email address for anybody that wanted to partner with the Navy at the Navy Yard.
Oh, right.
there you
Thomas.
go. Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, neighbors, thank you very much for jumping on last minute. I really appreciate you, appreciate your participation and involvement. I mean that sincerely. And if there's anything in between now and our next our single member district meeting, which will come before our full meeting, our full commission meeting, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can call me at any time or drop me an email. Okay. With that said, is there any other final questions or thoughts? Okay, I'm going to go take my contacts out because they are driving me insane. I will talk to you all later.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you.
Take care. Thank
Okay.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.